Okay, everyone, welcome back to Texturing a Medieval House at long last. I'm going to do this as a really informal video tutorial. So when I'm done, if I haven't answered your question, just please post with any additional questions that you may have. Okay, it's really pretty simple. So let's take the texture channels one by one. Alright, I'm in GLSL mode here. I've got a Hemi light on. Alright, and let's start with the brick foundation. Stone foundation is a simple tileable texture, this one right here, and it is unwrapped like this. I've unwrapped it like this because the grunge map will run along the bottom here and the top. This is actually upside down because I needed a lot of length here. I like my seams to wrap neatly. You can see here the seams on the corners unwrap neatly. They wrap around corners, and to do that you have to unwrap it so it goes like this. You can't just have them all over the place. It's a little inefficient, but it looks nice. Alright, so diffuse maps are simply set to UV 12 by 12 tiling or whatever tiling you want. Let's show an example of tiling here. 4 by 4 would have that effect. 1 by 1 is just exactly how it's laid out on this. Like, see this little black spot right here? It would just show up right wherever that is. I think it's along the back line right there. So anyway, let's set that back to 12 by 12. Quick note here: try to make your textures look like the size they actually would in the real world. So assuming a door is like 7 feet tall, these stones are maybe, a little less than a foot tall, which is reasonable for a stone. You don't want like, 3-foot tall stones on a building. People couldn't carry them. So just pay attention to that when you're doing that. Okay, let's turn on the normal map. It's very subtle here, but this is what a normal map does. It's set to the exact same tiling, 12 by 12, very important, and no offsets. If you do an offset, keep it the same. Alright, mapping is set to UV, image sampling is set to, select the right texture channel, is set to normal map. Alright, and down here, it's just set to normal. And diffuse, I don't know if I did this, is set to just color. Alright, let's turn these off. I'm going to show you AO. AO just paints dark bits in corners, essentially cracks and crevices. Real simple version of that. Now, there's a lot of different ways to do AO. I'm going to do a separate AO tutorial. But for this purpose, this is just an AO map set to the exact same unwrap, but a 1 by 1 tiling. And it is this AO map right here. So you only want it to tile 1 by 1 because you're doing exactly what it is. You don't tile AO maps. I'm sure there's an exception to that, but I don't think so. You don't actually need to use alpha here either. Turn that off. It wastes frame rate. Alright, grunge. What's grunge? It's dirt on the walls. Looks kind of punky here, but if you turn on the diffuse map and the AO and whatever, it looks really nice. A lot of 3D modeling programs and texturing tend to give things very, very clean looks. You have to sort of give it the lived-in look. So just throw some grunge on things. I grunged this building up significantly. Okay, what's a grunge map? Grunge maps are lots of things. For my purposes here, this grunge map is... where is it? I think it's that one. Yeah, it's just a transparent PNG, low resolution, painted in Photoshop with various brushes and whatnot. I don't just paint green. Let me tell you this. I don't just paint green. I see a lot of that. Bring in any any kind of like moss map you can find on any kind of texture site. Just bring in a moss map and then just start erasing bits of the background. If you use just green paint in Photoshop, it looks like you've got just areas of spray paint on your walls. Okay, so that's the grunge map. When you add a transparent PNG, alpha map on top of other things, you don't really have to set anything. You don't have to use pre-multiply. If you render, you have to use alpha and pre-multiply, but just for the game mode, you don't. Here's in-game, so that's not necessary unless you render. So turn that off. One by one tiling. You can also tile that out. Well, let's try that. It just gives different effects. So, alright, they are set to, you don't need this. Well, turning that on and off apparently does something, so, but I don't usually use it. So, turning this color slider up, never leave it one by one. It completely in the 100% opaque areas kills you. So I just put it on 0.5, and yeah, I don't actually use that anymore. I don't know why I have that. And it's just set to mix. Stencil gives different effects. Use stencil here. That's the one exception to the no special rule. Negative, obviously, turns it negative. Alright, the timber framing, you can see the AO map over here. It's got a normal map, and it's got a wood diffuse map. That's it. This is set to tiling, one by one. AO maps, let me show you how they're set up. You set them to color and multiply. And once again, don't set your AO maps to 100% black. Play with it until it looks right. Remember, you're not actually painting black on it, you're just trying to give the indication of shadows and a little bit of depth to it. So just play with that a little bit. Okay, one thing I'll say about wood, make sure that the grain follows the longest direction. So, grain runs this way, grain runs this way. I see a lot of these timber framed inns and houses where the grain is running all kinds of different directions. For these beams, these would be cut from the length of the tree, so the grain runs along the longest part of the object. And that's pretty simple. This is the unwrap, so just run your beams up and down, or side to side as your texture is. That's got a separate AO map baked onto it. And you can see it gives a little fake shadow here behind the okay, that's on the plaster. So the plaster AO obviously will not just paint in details in the corners and all, but it gives an indication, a little bit of fake non-directional shadow. Alright, looking at the roof here, I got an AO map, I got a grunge map, normal and diffuse here, same thing. So I think that's pretty much it. Just ask me specific questions. Okay, the windows, I didn't do a very good job on the windows here. I got a diffuse and a normal map. I should have put a specular map and some whatnot. I do windows better now. So let me show you the arch. I do arches better now also. But just when you make your arches, try to make the bricks line up so that they look like they're actual blocks. So, alright, this is no lights, and you can see what the AO maps do for it. So if I turn off AO map on the foundation here, it's really, really flat. But if I turn it on, even without lights, it just gives it a nice sort of, a little bit more depth. So, okay, thank you very much, and ask me specific questions in the thread, and I will try to answer them for you.